So if you were to see all of this is a budget which is not for the year. The FM talked about the whole Gati Shakti plan, which was announced by PM about 8 months before. So it is a plan. It's an expenditure commitment which is going to happen over the next at least 5-6 years. Because once these kinds of plans unveil, you can't stop halfway through. So it has to reach to its logical conclusion and move ahead. The larger point I'm trying to make is that the government expenditure on these key areas will continue to see even in the next couple of years. So it is not a one-off offshoot suddenly to come in and say I pump prime and then I can roll this back for the coming next years.
Members of countries reporting, I'll just quickly begin the session. Welcome to the Blue Circle. It's such a big privilege and pleasure to connect with everyone and our distinguished keynote speaker, who's handpicked because of the think input and the rich experience he brings in. Thank you also to our distinguished audience for joining us, most of whom are CEOs, CXOs, and senior leaders, and many of them are our members and repeat visitors to our webinars. This is very encouraging and motivates us to provide even higher levels of dialogue through the online mode as well. For those of you who are new with us today, Blue Circle is the world's first sector-specific networking app for business leaders that's built in India. We currently focus on 20 sector communities such as e-mobility, renewable energy, logistics, aerospace and defense, and many more. We also present socioeconomic insights, which ultimately determine the evolving complexion of the market. Along with our weekly webinar series and our digital publication, you will be happy to know that we have recently launched the first version of the Blue Circle app for leaders, somewhat like the sector-specific LinkedIn for senior leaders, a space to have meaningful conversations, connect with over 10,000 plus like-minded leaders from India and across the globe, house high-quality curated content, and access business opportunities across these sectors. Those leaders among you who are interested, please do join us. I will share the link to the app in the chat section, and we'll soon be sending out invitations to our new guests post today's discussion. Now, without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce today's keynote speaker, Mr. Jagannarayan Padmanabhan. He's the Director and Practice Lead for Transport, Logistics, Mobility at CRISIL. He leads transport, logistics, and mobility practice, and also strong domain expertise in the real estate, economic, and industrial corridors, industrial parks, and specific economic zones. Mr. Padmanabhan has handled more than 300 consulting engagements across these sectors. Apart from advising large corporate and government PSUs in India, he's also worked with clients in the Middle East and Asia Pacific. He actively contributes in the area of transport and logistics and has authored multiple articles across various leading business dailies such as Economic Times, Business Standard, Mint, etc. And for today's topic, Mr. Padmanabhan will be discussing stepping up the expenditure pedal for accelerated development in the logistics sector. Now I request Mr. Padmanabhan to please begin the session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam, and pleasure to be here with the Blue Circle members. Phenomenal work being done by you and bringing the entire community on a particular platform, and it's probably very unique in talking about very sector-specific conversations that are happening. So thanks, and happy to be here. So what we're going to be talking about is the whole budget impact and where the pump priming has happened, and what does it actually mean to the sector. Let me just go to the next one. So if we have to quickly look at what and how the expenditure, because that's the whole focus of what's the kind of money which is getting pumped in, and if you see in the last decade plus how and from about 3 lakh crore, if that's on the top left FY10 to where we are, which is probably more than 12 odd lakh crore, which we are having, so 12.2 lakh crore. It's a quantum jump, honestly, and figuratively as well, which has happened in the last 12 to 13 years. And also, if you see the dark gray one is the gross budgetary support, and the light gray one, which is there, is where the market borrowing happens, right? So if I take an example of the roads, then the gross budgetary support would be the dark gray one, but NHAI going and borrowing would be the light gray one. So this is across all ministries, but I'm just saying at an aggregate level, what's the differentiation? So if you see in how this has panned out between the last couple of years, before it was more like more of market borrowing, less of fiscal support by the government. Now it is more support by the government, less which is coming from the market borrowing. The limited point is the supply side part of it is being more acted upon, and this is more pronounced because of where we are in terms of the pandemic, and hence the need for government to kind of say that I will be doing the expenditure and hold the economy and propel the economy for its growth. So I think from an overall context, which is important, once you see a time series data, it really comes out that how government is playing such an active role in that. The red part, which is there on here, the line, is the infrastructure outlay. So of the total expenditure, which is there, about 12.2 lakh crore, more than 50% is actually for infrastructure. So that's quite heartening, and that's what we need to look at it, that how this is going to then help us. And if you see the 9 infra ministries, the talk that I happened, the point that I mentioned with respect to the gross budgetary support versus the individual borrowing, it's becoming a lot more pronounced here. So of the 6.5 lakh crore, 2/3 is being done by the government, only 1/3 is by market borrowing, which is there. So across these 9 ministries. So which clearly means infrastructure is a key focus area. They want to continue to pump in money, and hence it's fairly clear that at least in the last two from 21, 22, 23, the last 3 years when the pandemic is there, that this is how they have gone about in doing it. The circles which are there on top, which are the dark brown ones, are what was committed and what has got expended, right? So if you see FY10, only 80% of what was put across on the table got expended, right? So in the previous one, which was there, so uh, otherwise the reverse was to say that 18% did not get expended. Cut, cut to chase in 22, 23. If you see in 22, they have actually spent more than what they had actually planned to do, and which is very heartening, right? So I think this has always been a case that we plan well, but from an execution and the take-up part of it, we always seem to be lagging behind, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So I think this will give you a fairly large, a bigger picture of direction in which that the government is kind of moving and what we can hope to see in the days ahead, which is there. Now, what is the split up of this as well? Because we talked about those 9 ministries. Even in that, who is getting the bigger share? I think that's very important, and hence the linkage to the whole logistics part of it comes from there on. So the two critical areas from a logistics perspective is the railways and the roads part of it, and where and who is making that expenditure. If you were to look at it, see on top, which is the left one top, if you say the 2.1 lakh crore was in the revised estimate of the railways. So they had spent about 2.1 lakh crore. Today, for the FY23, which is the budget estimate, BE's budget estimate, it's about 2.4 lakh crore. So of the total 9 ministries part of it, this is itself the gross budgetary support is about 56%. So significant amount of expenditure is going to happen for railways, and that's the kind of figure which is there. In comparison to that, if you see on the left, everything else is so small. Now come to the right part of the whole table, where you have the roads, which is there, then the NHAI part of it, all of it put together. It's a significant 1.9 lakh crore. So this 1.3 is in a way subset of that 1.9. So it's not an additional part of it. On that 1.9 lakh crore, which is sitting out there, is 100% is a gross budgetary support. And this time around, they have come on to say that we're not going to do any market borrowing. everything is going to be funded by the government. What would it mean in a way is that faster execution will happen once the budgetary support is there. More projects can be taken up, and I have a different slide where we can talk about what is the kind of uh, the plan that they have for the year in terms of specifically for roads. So these are two clear call outs of where the expenditure is going to happen. What in the bigger picture part of it means is the integration which is going to happen of the overall economy as such. The vision is that to do about 25,000 kilometers of road is going to come on stream. It does not mean that it's going to get constructed in this year. It would have started in last year or the year before, but it is going to get on stream this year, which is close to about 15% of the total national highways. So just to kind of step back and see, in the last 20-25 odd years, whatever that had got done, we are going to add a 15% more just in 1 year. No, that's a significant jump in terms of the road coming on stream on the national highway part of it. So I just want to kind of call that out, which is significant in nature, and which would mean greater access, lesser logistics cost, hopefully. All of that will have a significant impact on the economy as such. That's one part of it. Second is on the railways part of it. So I'll have a sectoral part of it. I'll quickly talk about the roads a bit more and then come to the railways as well. The overall capex is maintained as what was last year, and it's significantly higher than the year before that. In fact, it's about quite double what was there in the FY19 kind of figures, which is there. But the budgetary support, we talked about it, not repeating there. NHI borrowing is literally zero. Where it is going to happen is NHI is not going to borrow, but it is going to monetize its assets, which will be the funding way that they will be going through. So you will have a lot of assets which are asset monetization, which is TOT1, TOT2. Those have happened. We are in TOT8. So 9, 10, that they will be able to monetize those roads. The targets for FY23 is about 12,000 kilometers, which will be the awarding part of it. And the rest, which I talked about, is about close to 20,000 odd, is going to be done through innovative financing. So all of is a very important way in which the road program is going to evolve in the coming years. The next one is on the railways part of it. You see the capex outlay has increased from an already high base, which was there as we speak on last year. Even on based on that the capex has increased by 14%, which is totally put together 1.4 lakh crore plus 1.1. That's close to about 2.5 lakh crore is what is there going to figure there for railways. So the railways budget has now increased in comparison to roads, which is having a high base to that extent. And this is also going to go into new ones like new lines, track renewals, all of that. You also have the high-speed rail corridor. Then you have the dedicated freight corridor. All of that is being significantly pushed. You have the eastern dedicated freight corridor, the western dedicated freight corridor. All of that is going to get further impetus. So the point again here, it means that the freight will get impacted significantly. Either because of the doubling of the lines on the passenger part of it, you will get freed capacity, or you have new capacity getting built, specifically like the dedicated freight corridor that we're talking about. Again, this is going to have significant impact as far as the overall logistics is concerned. So the larger call out here specifically is that how this whole integration is happening. How are we able to, government is able to expend and make this expenditure as a forefront to do it. The other two aspects which has got announced is the multimodal logistics part. About 4 of them is going to be awarded on a PPP basis. NHA has already worked on DPRs and pre-feasibility report of close to 15 to 20 of them. The 4 that is being talked about is in Indore, Bangalore, Nagpur, and Chennai. The Nagpur and Chennai, the bids are already out. There's significant interest among the people for these to bid for this. So I think that will also get on stream. The other announcement which had come in the in specific to the logistics part of it is the cargo terminals. About 100 cargo terminals for the next 3 years. That is what is being looked at. So if you were to see all of this, this is a budget which is not for the year. The FM talked about the whole Gati Shakti plan. which was announced by PM about 8 months before. So it is a plan. It's an expenditure commitment which is going to happen over the next at least 5-6 years. Because once these kinds of plans unveil, you can't stop halfway through. So it has to reach to its logical conclusion and move ahead. The larger point I'm trying to make is that the government expenditure on these key areas will continue to see even in the next couple of years. So it is not a one-off offshoot suddenly to come in and say I pump prime and then I can roll this back for the coming next years. So I'm kind of cautious on time. So that's what I had to share. Happy to take any further questions that the audience would like to talk about, and then we can take it from there.
Surely. So before I jump into the audience questions, we've already received 2 questions. I'll just start with that, and we can then progress into the Q&A session out here.
Sure.
So the one question which we've received is, the union budget nowadays is not restricted to the forthcoming financial year or 2, but more looks like a vision statement for 25 years into the future, while corporates had stopped doing 5-year business plan for almost a decade now due to uncertainties. What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's worded a bit differently, but I would say, yes, this is union budget is more and more looking not just as a one-year, one-off thing, which what it means is it removes uncertainty. It needs, so a corporate budget is completely different, right? So you have a corporate budget which will leave the big market cap ones, which are running into multi-lakh parts of it. But ordinary, whoever has a revenue of, let's say, between 5,000 crore to a 10,000 crore kind of a revenue, the budgets then the scale is completely different, right? So we are talking about 12 lakh crore, which is there, and then here is a scale which is like 5,000, 7,000, and these are 5,000, 7,000 crore top line is fairly large businesses that we're talking. So they can afford to be more agile in how they respond and how this has to happen. In an infrastructure, may not be a great example in our execution perspective, but any infrastructure, even being roads, we are clocking about close to between 30 to 40 kilometers per day, which is okay. We could do better. Point is that it takes at least 24 to 36 months. We can argue why it should take 24 to 36 months, but that's what the lay of the land is, right? So we have a lead time of 24 to 36 months to have from a good, I would say, that execution track record, a large scale project from start to finish. If it gets done in 3 to 5 year period in India, I think that's a fair point. The point is, government needs to then think in that kind of a time frame. I can't be thinking in a time frame of 1 year and 2 year. It needs to start thinking in the more medium and the longer term perspective. And it may not be a 25-year period. That's too far away, but at least from a 3 to 5 year period, what step change needs to happen? Example, roads. We were at some 75,000 to 80,000 odd kilometers about 4 years before. So the same example, like it took 20 years to do 70,000 kilometers. So then in the last 4 years, we have nearly doubled our network, right? So that means you need to sustain this network, to put more money. So you need to start thinking far ahead. And when you're doing the market borrowing also, you're not borrowing for 1 year, 2 year period. You'll do a borrowing for 10 years. Once you start borrowing for 10 years, you need to have plans for 10 years, right? So that's how, at least from the infra and the limited point of discussion of this particular webinar, I would like to say that it has a constraint that you have to at least start thinking medium term to long term, because people, at the end of the day, corporates of any of these infrastructure companies, if it is going to be having a decent road project size of even, let's say, 60 kilometers or 70 kilometers, it's one small part of it. Project cost goes to like 300 crores. If I have a debt equity of 70-30, the debt part itself is like coming to 200 crores. He wants certainty that, yes, I put up my neck out, I do this, I will get more projects, I can then sustain, I can roll. So people like that certainty. It's good to have that kind of a longer term vision. That's what I would say.
Fabulous. I think a very elaborate way of putting it across, and thank you so much. I'll move on to the next question, and this is from a tech angle. The question is IoT utilization growth in this year and the upcoming opportunities in supply chain management.
Yeah, so this is probably a bit beyond the budget as well, right? So it's not something which is to that. But specific to this part of it, which was also called out in the budget, and we can also see the kind of money which is getting poured in by the VCs, by the venture capitalists and pension funds, all of that in creating the startup ecosystem, right, is phenomenal, right? So unheard, you have unicorns, multiple unicorns coming. The merit and demerit, all of that, let's keep that aside. But I think that is spurring the way technology is going to get all pervasive in the way that we do business, right? So I think that's point number one. So it's very here and now, and it is going to get sustained over a period of time. We'll do that. The second, even in terms of, let's say, a thing like a fast tag, which is got implemented, right? So you see the kind of impact which is happening at the ground level because of this kind of an implementation. Today, the split between what is fast tag and non-fast tag in majority of the toll plazas, that if you look at it, what was there 4 years before, not much of fast tags, but still it was there, 3 years before kind of thing which was there. It was 5% fast tag, 95%, paying through money, hard cash. Today, it is 98%, which is going to be done through the fast tag. Only 2% of the people are paying cash and grudgingly so, for some reason or the other it is there. Point is, technology is come to that kind of area. It is here now, the whole collection, authentication, and the movement of the vehicle happens in not more than 5 seconds. So I think that's how fast things are moving, and hence this whole Internet of Things and how it can be leveraged. That's the way to go forward. I don't see, and more so in the logistics industry, multiple areas of where, today you have people coming in and delivering goods in any metros that if you are there. Today, the talk of the thing is 10 minutes, right? Guy sources, he has it. So it has to be network technology. You can see what's happening, where it is coming in. And you're able to do so. All of that is because of technology, right? Which happens. So today, anybody can. You don't need to sweat because you forgot getting something from the marketplace, right? You just need to again say the guy comes like 10 times into your house. All of that, and then they force you to make that as a habit and use that as a technology part of it. Phenomenal level of integration, quite fast paced in which this is happening.
Okay. So now I'll move on to the Q&A section. I think we've received one question. I'll just wait for other people to also start asking questions. But to begin with this, there's a gentleman, Mr. Akshay Sharma. He's asked, how do you see the budget improving the growth and lowering the cost of logistics in India? I'm sure it's a very pertinent topic. So
yeah, sure. No. So I think it's a very good question as well, right? So the point he is asking is, what does that eventually mean, right? So आप बड़े lakh crore सब बात कर दिया, तो what does it actually then translate into in rupees, paise, and what can be there? So the point there is the logistics cost. This number has been floating around. Was about 12%, right? Is the logistics cost, which adds to the product. So you become straight away uncompetitive by 12% because of the logistics cost. And developed economies, we are talking about anything between 4 to 5%. So you have a 7% disadvantage, and that's one part of it. Leave alone the logistics part of it. The second one, which is important, is the access to market. The cost comes secondary only if you're able to access. So if I have produced a good, an agro produce, which is there, guy sitting in West Bengal, in a district I have a food processing plant, I'm able to process it as well. everything is fine, but where will I go and do it? The integration of that into a port area, if I have to export it, I have to have a port infrastructure, which is somewhere within the vicinity of 200 to 50 kilometers. So that's access to market, basically, right? Uh, which is now getting crushed significantly by this expenditure. So the whole logistics cost will come down. Today, how does cost get built up? Cost gets built up because of time, right? If I'm able to crush time, I will be able to give you, because I will have a truck. If I'm going to be taking 15 days to sorry, 1 second. So if I'm going to take 15 days before, and I have 300 days, so I have a 20 times I can do the circling of the truck. But if I'm able to bring it from 15 days to 10 days, then I'm able to do the turnaround trip at 30. So that means I'm able to sweat the asset more. I'm able to give you, pass on that benefit. So that's what is basically when you put money and improve infrastructure, that's what is essentially happening. So my roads, which is a lot more dependable. I have my toll plazas, which are a lot more integrated, which I don't need to spend so much time. Corruption is less. You pay money, just keep going, right? So ease of doing business is far better. That's what has happens on the roads part of it. Now on the rail part of it also, and everybody knows this, there's nothing new to this August audience out here, that the freight always cross subsidizes the passenger part of it, and cross subsidizes in a significant manner. Correct? Yeah, and they get so they pay the most and they get the worst treatment. It's like a double whammy on both sides that they have. So if you have a dedicated freight corridor, money pumped in, get it up and running, you will be able to do the same part of it in far lesser time, which means it's again the cost part of it. The point is, it's just not the money cost which goes into the transportation part of it. It is a working capital which has a larger impact. Today, if I have to send my good from point A to point B, if I'm going to take 15 days, right? Then only if it reaches there, then his time to pay back to me starts across. So I'm at a natural disadvantage of 5 days. Suppose if I'm able to crush it to 10 days, that means I have saved 5 days of my working capital part of it as well. So I think, and this is just the final finished goods. If you have to just see the crush part of it in the whole value chain of how this is going to get added, you will see that the money gets freed. There's a free cash flow which happens so much faster, and the rotation happens. So all of this means you need higher or better infrastructure, right? That's how the whole journey goes across. And in a way, if I can come back to the first question also, which is there, and hence you need to have a larger and a bigger vision, saying that I need to be looking at 10 years, 5 years. That's the point. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I'll move on to the next question. Mr. Jiten Vadera has asked, in what time frame you see the results of increasing capex in infrastructure kick in? What percentage increase in foreign investment will likely result?
So very good. Just conscious of time, I'll quickly and take this up. So it takes about 3 to 5 years, right? So you put in the money now. So even for the road part of it, for traffic to really come through to what was there before, it takes a 5-year period for people, and then the stabilization of the traffic happens. Then that's so you clearly see that's, and hence the payback period, if you were to look at it, it will be far higher. So it's like a 15-year horizon. So I put in the money, I see some level of stabilization, then the cash starts coming in, then I break even and I move ahead. So that's the large part of it, and that's why if you see the concessions which goes into any of these projects, it's like a 30-year concession, 40-year concession, and hence these are not unheard of years which are there. So that's how you'll have to look at it. The second part of it is in terms of the in terms of the foreign investments. Foreign investments on specifically on roads, I'll talk about it, and also probably in the warehousing in that context also. Significant amount of money has come through. Today, I can stick my neck out in a way to say that large Indian road player is not there. Okay, it has all been bought out, or a significant investment has been done by a pension fund into any of them. So I'm not going into the specific names, which may not be appropriate, but that's how in the last 4 years or 5 years, the whole things has changed. Similar part of the story you will hear in a renewable webinar, where the kind of money which has been there poured in from the foreign investment. So foreign investments are coming thick and fast in both the industrial warehouse, that part of the story, and here also in the roads part of the story. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next question quickly. Containerization is considered a key factor in lowering logistics cost. What is being done in this regard?
See, containerization, fair point, but it is beyond the purview of a budget discussion. I will just put across only to that part of it. Yes, containerization does lower cost because you're able to pack it. It is the whole wastage is very limited, pilferage is limited, and that's how the whole container thing itself came across. So it needs a lot more adoption. What I can, in a way, think of it is probably more ICDs, more CFS, more aggregation points can be coming across, which will all then help in the containerization of the thing. We are far behind in comparison to developed markets. Nothing to take away from that. It's a long journey we ahead for us to get, and the kind of goods which going to get containerized, the level of containerization, all that is also something we still have a long way to go. Point taken as far as the logistics cost. Yes.
So I just have one last question I'm going to ask you. I know we spilled over a little time, but just going to take a little 5 more minutes of your time.
Sure.
Mr. Aditya Singh has asked, the budget outlays very little capex infusion into the core maritime space. Considering that the need to increase exports by making Indian goods more competitive and accessible, is the government missing a trick by not securing a major link in the global supply chain for Indian exporters?
No, so you're right. Maritime space is a very important point to be looking at. But the good thing of all the sectors to be looking at is the maritime sector already has significant amount of private sector participation, right? Just throw some numbers around. We would be doing an export of give or take of about 1.3 million, 1.3 trillion tons per annum. You know, broadly, that's the kind of number that we are looking at. Out of that, about close to 50% and more today is being handled by the private sector, right? So the capex, then and people have tasted success and been able to put it. That's point one part of the story. Why probably the government is moving away from it. The need for the government to be there in that space is becoming lesser and lesser. So that's one point. The second, from a capacity perspective, also today about only 60% of the capacity which is available across these ports is getting utilized. So there is a headroom for better utilization of capex even in this current setup. Does that mean that we don't need new ports? Not at all. If you go to any kind of a European country or any of that kind of a thing, they have a port every 150 kilometers, right? So I think it's a far well developed to that. We have our own challenges in terms of the marine side of it. When I say marine side, the depth and the draft is very limited. It is too shallow, and hence you may not be able to have a. So the technical aspects may not be helping us to have ports like every 100 kilometers. Although we have sea, which is across three sides of us, is in a way significantly we have sea and longest coastlines and all of that. It may not have that. So and the other part of it is that today the government is also throwing up some of its terminals for bidding by the private sector. So I think that's investment is still going on. There are 12 major ports plus one corporate port of the government plus significant number of private ports plus operators. They are pumping in money into this sector and keeping it vibrant. It has its own set of challenges, but so the point is that it is important. It's a great part of the value chain. Government has already put that private sector has already put that expenditure and continue to do that. Government is incentivizing the private sector by offloading some of the terminals, and hence investments will continue to be there, and it will only grow from there on. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Would you like to take another question, or should we? I think we've passed enough time for this thing. The question is around the one station, one product concept, and if you just
Yeah,
want to
so
bring.
it's a new concept. Well, briefly, I don't have a specific strong view about it. Just because there is so many stations, right? So I don't. So you need to really think through this. It's like railway network is so. We all know it. We all grown. What does a station mean itself? I need to understand. So I need to really understand what. So otherwise, if you take a goods or a sleeper, this thing kind of a coach part of it, in a 200-kilometer run, you may get about more than 20-30 stations, right? So small. So what does actually a station mean? What does a product mean? Who's going to do this? Who's going to set it up? It will help local business, no doubt about it. How is it going to be getting done? This is a central government. All of that which is going to happen on beyond this station is all state government, right? So lots of stuff is to be seen how this will unfold in the bigger scheme of things.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Padmanabhan. Such an insightful and engaging session, and a privilege to hear you. Our guest and I have been hooked till the very end, and have taken home several nuggets. And thank you to our leaders in the audience for joining us and for staying till the end and for sharing excellent questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
I see you.